Hello, Dr.Long here. Today we will be going over Tales for SCP-005. SCP-005 is associated with the Long Goodbye, which I already went over, so you can find that with the other audio logs. The first tale we will be going over is called the Keysmith's Bootstrap and is associated with SCP-005 and SCP-196.
The smell of salt and the sound of quietly lapping waves suddenly appears. I fall. The solid floor previously supporting me now vanished down to the surface of the water I know is below me. I should be a moderate distance away from the shore, which in turn shouldn't be far from my home. I haven't been outside in several decades, let alone seen the sea during that time. Faint, cloudy memories of me and my mother at the beach emerge, both of us sitting alone. We pat down the sands in our buckets before flipping them over, creating featureless cylindrical sandcastle. "We did it!" she says. Mere seconds before an all-resounding splash and the sensation of immersion yanks me back to reality, the abundance of suffocating water forcing me to swim to the surface, and my oxygen-deprived mind withdraws into itself. The true physical senses are replaced with simulation as I fall into my memories. Blank dash blank dash 20 blank at blank semicolon blank.
You're a target.
Spoke the voice of 05-6, all semblance of any identifiable characteristic being masked.
Several undercover agents we have within hostile factions have informed us that an attempt to capture or terminate you is being planned, or may already be in motion. We are unsure of the motive of these plans, but are expecting an attempt at blackmailing the Foundation as a whole. You should understand we cannot allow this to happen.
Leaning forward in my seat, I took a moment to think about this revelation. Why would anyone even consider this? Site 17 would have been filled with countless items or beings that followed their own laws or logic, all of which would have been far more useful than me. Only one of the anomalies here had ever crossed my path in person. Admittedly, the others I only heard of from mumblings from the staff working on them, or from the occasional sounds they made as they rampaged freely through the building. The staff themselves were more valuable than I, having knowledge of how to access the information known only to my protectors, the Foundation. It was like stealing the rotten apple at the bottom of a barrel of grenades, a lot of effort for the most worthless thing in there. Not waiting for a response, the dark outline on the screen continued speaking.
Do not tell anyone else about what I'm about to tell you to do. It is probable that those posted close to you may very well be the ones we are attempted to protect you from. Informing them of what we are going to do could prompt them to take action, so under no circumstance whatsoever can anyone other than you, me, and my fellow overseer be made aware of this conversation.
The voice made a particular emphasis on the last sentence, increasing their volumes rather than changing their tone.
I will state this once, effective immediately. You're being promoted to E-Class and being assigned to an anomaly under our control that you're familiar with. SCP.
Present day. Fading back into consciousness, a feeling of immense nausea sweeps through me. Instincts kick in and I sit upright as my lungs are purged from seawater, vomiting it all out. Someone sighs, the noise explaining the instinctive feeling of not only being watched, but being surrounded by an unseen crowd. Finally, regaining full control of my body, I open my eyes and look about to see my new surroundings. The man who had come down from his chair earlier was sitting to my right, breathing heavily and smiling. He wears strange clothes, consisting only of the colors red and yellow, topped with a funny little hat that almost makes his head look like a ripe tomato. The small crowd around us, consisting entirely of worried adults, begins to subside as some of them lose interest.
You feeling better, man?
Speaks the man, his Australian origin more obvious in his voice than the fact that he could speak. A nod satisfies his curiosity, and he moves on to the next query.
Can you tell me what's your name?
The question echoes in the emptiness of my foggy mind. It isn't because of an inability to answer the question, My identity is easy to recall without effort. The question is whether the truth should be provided or not. Just as I am to him, his identity is completely unknown to me, and by extension, any trust in him could be misplaced. Too drowsy to think of a proper response, I just shake my head.
Alright, just relax, mate. The ambulance is on its way. Everything will be alright.
A slight hint of concern is now present in his voice. While it's a good idea to go to the hospital and get medical attention, the more pressing matter is getting home. Besides, there will be plenty of doctors stationed at Site 17. Despite his wishes for me to stay and relax, I need to get up and leave.
Sir, please just relax. You're okay.
He speaks in response to my motion, resting his hand upon my shoulder to try to coerce me to comply. I shake my hand, trying to fight the lingering fogginess of my mind. Where am I? My throat feels dry despite the water that had formerly flowed through it. My voice is raspy and weak. It hardly sounds like my own, but it surely is mine. A drink of water, that should fix it. Sternly, I repeat my question. He means well, but his insistence on me to comply is beginning to become irritating. He quietly muffles a sigh before responding, telling me the name of the beach and of the nearby city. Thank you. The crowds part before me as I walk away, pausing briefly to address the man again. I am grateful that you saved me, but I'm in a rush. Satisfied that the apology should be enough to appease him, I follow a nearby path into the city. The sound of countless cars horns blaring, of thousands, if not millions, of commuters walking and talking throughout the streets quickly become deafening within the confines of the city. Around me are endless rows of skyscrapers reaching high into the sky, like concrete obelisks from an ant's view. Moving through the streets is almost as difficult as swimming against the tide that had formerly claimed my life. As endless hordes of businessmen and tourists alike travel in the opposite direction to me, the minor collisions between us slowly driving me back. It's too much for me to stand. The silence and solitude of Site 17 is what I was accustomed to. There's a side street nearby which I head to, hoping it is refuge from the overabundance chaos of the city. It is certainly much darker, the shadows of the buildings on either side blocking out most of the light, and the noise of the street is slowly muffled to the further I go in. Leaning against a section of the wall parallel to a particularly foul-smelling dumpster, I take a moment to orient my thoughts and catch my breath.
Looks like we have an over here.
Shouts someone further in the alley. A group of 7 people emerge from the shadows, all visibly the type ready to cause trouble. Jeans, shirts with their sleeve torn off, or designed to look that way. Prominent muscular arms. They all sport countless scars and stitches, and all are grinning maliciously as they approach. Eyes fixed on me. Oh shit.
What are you fucking doing here? Shouts one of them, picking up speed as he approaches me. My mind is screaming to run back into the street and disappear into the endless crowd. My heart is already prepared for this to happen, beating at a rate much higher than normal, and yet I cannot move. I will myself to take the first step, only to stare in utter fear as the group surrounds me. The man grabs my shoulder and turns me around, glaring with fury in his eyes, a vicious snarl in his speech.
I said, what the fuck is an like you doing on our turf?
He barks. His insistence for a response, coupled with his obvious will for a fight, was enough to prompt me to speak. I didn't know I wasn't allowed here. Before I can make an attempt to leave, 2 men standing between me and the street step forward to show me that I wasn't going to get past them. Cold sweat start rolling down my spine.
You think you can just go anywhere you want now, don't you?
He is riling himself up now, finding reasons to make himself angry about my presence. I'd been insulted over my African genes before, but not to this degree. Had racism become fashionable again? Regardless, I was in for a fight that I probably won't win.
You should have stayed where you belong, picking cotton up.
Leave him alone. Everyone turns to see the source of the new voice. A man who had turned off the main street. He walks fiercely past the 2 men blocking my escape, apparently unconcerned with the violence his gang was capable of and how hopelessly outnumbered he would be. Both his arms and his legs are prosthetics, visibly made of polished silver metal, but the silence of their operation and their accuracy in mimicking natural movement show they are of exceptionally high quality. They could easily deflect damage and probably break bones, explaining his obvious feeling of safety. The man who had been shouting at me backs away as the newcomer approaches me, ignoring the presence of the others. Are you okay? He speaks in his Arabian heritage, supported by his prevalent accent. He has a strange symbol carved into his forehead, the meaning of which is unknown, and his blue eyes are strangely piercing.
What the fuck do you think you're doing here, just waltzing in uninvited?
The other man sounds significantly angrier, having been interrupted and ignored by this new arrival.
Don't fucking ignore me, dude.
The Good Samaritan doesn't respond to the barking voice. He doesn't respond until I nod my head, indicating that I was physically fine, albeit emotionally frightened. Go, I'll stay in your stead. Nothing more needs to be said. As the two guards move into hub attack, I run past them and out into the street. My instinct of flight rather than fight fully kicks in as I start rushing through the crowds as quickly as I can go, fighting against the tide of people. People shout as they are shoved aside, cars beep in frustration as I sprint past them, but I don't stop. It isn't until the buildings start to shorten and the crowds thin that I finally stop, tripping over an uneven pave. With a light clink, the sole item in my pocket falls out and lands onto the pavement.
Blank dash blank dash 20 blank at blank semicolon blank.
Quickly grabbing it to prevent its loss, I look over it while getting up, studying its details. I follow the small carving across its surface, the swirl that twists and shrinks beyond my observation, but feel only its smooth metal surface. The sensation of timelessness emanates from it, yet it shows no signs of aging, as I do. Walking north through the city streets, memories of how this item came into my possession emerge. The whitewashed halls were both familiar and unfamiliar, as I was escorted through them by the two guards. Featureless and bland, they looked as though the designer had simply copied and pasted the same four base components: straight hall, corner, T-junction, four-way junction, over and over again. Considering the workings of the foundation, that was probably what had happened to minimize design costs. I was being escorted through these halls by two guards I was unfamiliar with. Their revelation from several minutes earlier had me uneasy, being unsure if they were traitors or potential friends. Silence was my default.
Oi, we're here.
The sudden gruff voice of the guard was startling, speaking as he came to a stop. The two glared at me the way you would if someone needed to hurry up. The door that was our destination stood alone along its long stretched hall, the sole sentinel holding back the unfathomable chaos held behind it. It would only respond to a keycard with a high enough clearance, otherwise stand firm. Fortunately, I was given such a card shortly after my conversation with the overseer. A moment after swiping it, I repeat the action but to no response.
Must be fucking faulty. You able to open it, Frankie?
The gruff voiced guard spoke to the other, turning to face me.
Nope, everyone who can is already inside. We'll have to fetch the skeleton key.
The voice of the other was friendly and smooth. I felt more trusting to him than to the other, but not enough to prevent me from shifting away slightly. They both suddenly turned and marched down the hall again, leaving me behind.
Hurry up!
Barks the first, prompting me to spring to catch up. It doesn't take long for us to complete a brief detour, speaking to a specific researcher who was assigned to the item we seeked. We were entrusted with the item, and with it in our possession, returned to the door once more. This time, upon swiping it, the door slid open. Keeping the item in hand, I walked to the other end of the airlock, swiping it once more to open the second door. It was then that I remembered where I was, and with a feeling of nostalgia and a wave of memories, I looked around the familiar interior of the hangar-like room and the sole device it housed. A colossal half-sphere constructed of steel and painted with forest. Present day. The feeling of grime within my shoes hauls me out of my trance. Countless trees surround me, their roots ascending between the swamp's mud. There are no meaningful details to be seen beyond dark silhouettes, the dim moonlight blocked by the thick canopy above. The swamp should be close to the site, the foul smell of gases being familiar. But without knowledge of landmarks or direction, certainty couldn't be achieved. There is nothing to do but wander aimlessly between the trunks, hoping that fate will intervene in my favor. A brief flash of light signals that fate may indeed be on my side, and with all the remaining energy that I can muster, I charge towards it. Cold dollops of soaked earth splatter across my back, and putrid glass rises in my wake as the ground is disturbed by my feet. A chain link fence comes into sight ahead. A chain link fence comes into my sight, separating the border between the swamp and a cleared field. At the center of it is a compound made of concrete, and a familiar one at that. I've made it. I'm safe. The front gate of Site 17 is a long walk from here, even longer from there back inwards to the site. Nearby is a large tree with branch spanning the space between the trunk and the fence.
This should be enough to get in. After several minutes of clambering up and along the branches, I have jumped down and landed on the other side of the barbed wire top fence.
Approaching the larger bulkhead serving as the entry, someone behind me shouts something too faint to be heard. It couldn't be at me they're shouting about, as I'm no stranger to the site or its security. The gate doesn't open before me, as it isn't been instructed to do so yet, but I have the power to issue the command. The small item in my pocket, once more, does its magical work. As it swiped through a nearby card reader, the oversized door parts before me. On the other side is a familiar face of one of my closest friends, a security guard stationed here at the site, who has obviously been awaiting my return. He twitches slightly. There is a sudden pain in my chest as something collides with it. It's force enough to make me stagger back, fast enough for me not to see what hit me. My friend holds a rifle in his hands, aimed at my chest. I don't understand. Numbness overcomes me as I lose controls of my arms and legs, forcing me to kneel before falling to my side. My mind struggled to comprehend its rapid loss of control, instigated by my friend firing his gun at me without provocation. As he approaches, the details of his face become more apparent. He is astoundingly similar to my friend, but there isn't enough age in his face. He's too young. My friend looks almost as old as myself, but this child is obviously no older than 30 at most. Thoughts become foggy again as they had earlier. Today? Last week? Memories blur together and fade with my senses, preventing retreat. Aries is beautiful tonight. On blank-19 blank, an unidentified individual attempted to gain access to the interior of Site-17. The individual was advanced age, estimated to be between 60 and 80 years old, and utilized an anomalous item in order to open the primary gate of Site-17. The individual was terminated by security at the gate, preventing further incursion, and is believed to be a lone assailant. The anomalous item recovered is pending SCP classification. Blank-20 blank. On blank-20 blank, SCP-196 notified staff of its familiarity with the workings of SCP-2367, offering to assist assigned staff in correcting the inherent danger of the anomaly. SCP-196 was granted temporary E-Class status to operate with the anomaly. SCP-196 utilized SCP-2367 in order to escape containment and displace itself to the year 19 blank, fulfilling the circumstance under which it was first encountered by Site-17. SCP-196 is declared neutralized. Prior to escaping containment, SCP-196 acquired SCP-005 in order to access SCP-2367 due to the fault in its temporary access pass. SCP-005 has since been recovered from data expunged and is now stored at Site-10.
From 05-6 to 05 Command. Subject, Project Sharon. Message, Operation Accender Solution has fulfilled its objective. SCP-196 was deceived into believing an attempted kidnapping was imminent. The anomaly believed that the temporal displacement capabilities of SCP-2367 was restricted to 2 weeks. Staff assigned to SCP-2367 primed the anomaly to displace SCP-196 to blank-19 blank, enabling the completion of its causal loop. Any staff assigned to SCP-2367 that were aware of the deception of SCP-196 have been amnesticized and cannot recall their involvement. All staff unaware of the Accender solution believe that SCP-196 escaped containment of its own volition. The intentional fault of the E-Class identification card provided to SCP-196 necessitated the use of SCP-005-1 to access SCP-2367, as expected. This resulted in the item being displaced to blank-19 blank and enabling it to be recovered from SCP-196 when first encountered. This resulted in the item being displaced to blank-19 blank and enabled it to be recovered from SCP-196 when first encountered. SCP-005-2, the instance of SCP-005 recovered from the first encounter with SCP-196, and by extension the future incarnation of SCP-005-1, is henceforth classified safe and designated SCP-005. SCP-005-2 is classified decommissioned/neutralized and is to be expunged from all records. Integrity of the architect has been ensured. So, that's it for that one. The next one's called... Wait a second, I can't seem to find the cassette. Give me a second. Nope, I have no clue where I put that cassette. Anyway, I think that's gonna be it for today. As I'm unable to find the cassette, I'll take a lunch break, and if and when I find it, we will go over that one. See you folks in the next one.